On the morning of June 9th, 2000, Francheska Martinez was perhaps a bit more excited than usual. The very next day was her birthday, when she and her twin sister, Misheila, would be turning 13 years old, officially becoming teenagers. Francheska was up and about quite early that day and was already outside in the garden at 10 a.m. that morning. At around 10:30, her sister Misheila remembered talking to her through the kitchen window, and Francheska told her that she was heading to the shop to pick up a few things. Misheila watched her sister go, and just a few minutes later, their stepfather, Hippolito Miguel Corneille, arrived at the shop that Francheska had told Misheila that she was heading to, but no one had seen the girl that day. This was unusual behaviour for Francheska. Family and friends described her as a well-behaved and happy child who was always very friendly and was doing well in school. But just hours later, Misheila would receive a phone call that would only make the events of that day even more confusing. At around 1:30 p.m, Francheska called the home phone, and her sister, Misheila, answered. Francheska told her that she was actually with friends at the Great Falls on the Pacific River, but asked her not to tell anyone because she didn't want to get into trouble or have to come back home just yet. Misheila did keep this to herself for the time being, but when her sister failed to return home that night, she told her family about the phone call, and a search party was launched that would bring even more information to light. Friends claimed that Francheska had secretly been dating a 22-year-old man that she had been keeping a secret from her family. This man, however, was never publicly identified, but finding this out did cause Francheska's family to tell the police that Francheska had recently got into an altercation with a man outside a local pharmacy. The two got into a verbal confrontation before the man reportedly told Francheska, quote, "Don't worry, you'll see what's going to happen to you," and subsequently left. The police continued to question friends and family, looking for her and trying to identify this male individual, and the girl's father, Jose Martinez, would actually fly in from Puerto Rico to help with the search, but another clue would be found just a few days later that would muddle the waters again. A white plastic grocery bag was found in the driveway leading to their mother's house, just days after Francheska's mysterious disappearance. Inside the bag were the clothes that Francheska had been seen wearing on the day she disappeared: a pair of blue denim shorts, a pink floral tube top, and a pair of white cotton underwear. Rather surprisingly, her shoes were not present in the bag, and this was a fact that supported a lot of the earlier claims made about her by her friends, that due to the fact her shoes were missing, this could point to Francheska actually being alive when the clothes were left behind, and could support the theory of her dating someone that her family didn't know about. It is possible that Francheska had lied about where she was going that day, had changed into different clothes, perhaps to make herself look older or more appealing when meeting up with her secret boyfriend, and then the pair had left together, maybe going to Great Falls, maybe going somewhere else entirely. In fact, she had told her friends that she wanted to go to the Puerto Rican Day Parade in Manhattan. That was only a couple of days later after she'd disappeared, and not too far from the family home in Paterson, New Jersey. Friends would claim that they never saw her there, but a young neighborhood boy would come forward to say that he had actually seen her there that day. He said that Francheska had been sitting in a Honda with an older male, and when the boy had shouted to try to get Francheska's attention, she had actually ducked and hid inside the car so that she wouldn't be seen. The police believed his testimony, doubling down on the idea that Francheska was a runaway, but then something even stranger happened. Just 6 weeks after Francheska had disappeared, her twin sister, Misheila, now 13, disappeared as well. This time, the police weren't so eager to open another investigation, saying that it was more than likely that the two girls had been in contact with each other and had run away together. In fact, they wouldn't open a separate investigation into Misheila's disappearance, only registering her as a runaway, and slowly, the look for the girls lost steam. But the main reason behind this theory that she was actually a runaway was a note that Misheila left behind when she disappeared. The note claimed that Francheska and Misheila were both unhappy at home and accused their mother of not loving their stepfather Hippolito enough and having an affair. The note cited this as one of the reasons why the girls were unhappy and one of the reasons why they had chose to run away together, but their mother wasn't convinced. She told the police that the girls were actually happy at home and explained that she wasn't having an affair with anyone, but the police took the note to heart and the girls remained registered as runaways rather than endangered missing persons. Just a few months later, their stepfather, Hippolito Miguel Corneille, would be on police radars again, and this time it wouldn't be for missing girls. On September 8th in the year 2000, Hippolito went out drinking in a local bar. He would come home around 11 p.m, but he wasn't alone, and he wasn't with his wife. He had an 18-year-old woman named Nelly Mercado with him when he came back to his basement room in a boarding house in Paterson, New Jersey. Nelly Mercado was a local sex worker who often had to live on the streets and work late into the night to support her 2-year-old daughter, and that night she was with Hippolito Miguel Corneille. Witnesses heard screaming and shouting around 4 a.m, but what they were actually hearing was a physical altercation between Hippolito and Nelly. Nelly had reportedly struck him, and after she'd hit him again and insulted him, Hippolito tried to restrain her and stop the fight from going any further. But during this fight, Hippolito strangled Nelly before taking her naked body back upstairs and leaving it on his front porch. He then fled the scene, and her body was discovered by neighbours around 6 a.m. that morning, only a couple of hours after witnesses had heard the fight. But by this time, Hippolito was long gone. He did come back to Paterson for reasons he never really explained, but he was thankfully arrested when he did, and he was charged with Nelly's murder. At first, the case went to trial where Hippolito pled not guilty to first-degree murder, but after taking a deal with the prosecution, he did eventually plead guilty to aggravated manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 17 years in prison. He was released in 2017, but his arrest and the murder of Nelly Mercado shone a light on him in the disappearances of Francheska and Misheila Martinez. Their brother would then come forward and claim that the relationship between Hippolito and Francheska was not a normal one. He said that Hippolito gave Francheska a lot of attention and would often take her on shopping trips that would last the whole day, and that when she would return with more and more clothes each time. He then went on to claim that Francheska was pregnant with Hippolito's child, but that claim couldn't either be proved or disproved since no one has been able to talk or examine Francheska since the day she disappeared. Some claim that the girl's disappearance and the murder of Nelly Mercado gave weight to this theory. Clearly, Hipólito is someone who is capable of killing, as he did just months after the girls disappeared, and maybe he did just that when Francheska went missing, in an attempt to hide the paternity of her child. Some theories claim that Misheila knew, or at least figured out, what had happened to her sister, so Hipólito killed her as well to cover his tracks. But that doesn't account for the sightings witnesses reported of Francheska just 2 days after her disappearance, and it doesn't account for the mysterious 22-year-old man that she had told her friends that she was dating. It also doesn't discredit the possible theory of the girls falling victim to human trafficking, which could have been a result of Francheska being roped in by her much older boyfriend and then convincing her sister to come along before they even realised what was happening. Maybe there wasn't ever a 22-year-old man hanging around with Francheska. He was never identified, and their mother still claims that Francheska was a well-behaved child who would come straight home after school and wouldn't stay out late when she did go out with friends. Maybe we'll never know for sure what happened to the Martinez sisters, who may or may not have run away on their own, and maybe unwillingly fell victims to a fate far worse. Their case remains open, and they remain registered as runaways, with investigators releasing various age progression images of the girls and what they would look like up to the ages of 31, which were released in 2019. Many internet sleuths and armchair detectives have identified possible matches for both girls with pictures of known hostesses and other kinds of sex workers, but no confirmed identifications have ever been made. It is, however, very unlikely that two 13-year-old girls would have been able to disappear of their own free will without any outside assistance, especially without leaving a trail behind for investigators to follow. And there was that bag of Francheska's clothing, discovered that was just missing her shoes, at least giving the impression that she was still alive on June 9th of 2000. Who knows if that was what was left behind when she quickly changed her clothes to meet up with someone she wasn't supposed to. It certainly wouldn't be unheard of that a teenage girl would change into her clothes in secret like that, but who knows if it was left behind by someone covering their tracks and hoping to leave the impression of a young girl running away from home. What fate truly befell the Martinez sisters remains unknown to this day. Did they disappear of their own free will in order to protect one another, or did something more sinister occur? Either way, the case of Francheska and Misheila remains unsolved.